This is the second installment on what I committed to do, something I committed to doing very recently, and that is sharing my experiences as an entrepreneur in this podcast. I've been basically an entrepreneur for the past 10 years, and before this time, I was an entrepreneur for about 2-3 years. I was a co-founder of the Bishop Tutu Refugee Fund. We started that back in June 1985 in Hartford, Connecticut. And it was quite an experience. It was a wonderful experience, a great learning experience. And even before that time, I dipped and dabbled into different entrepreneurial activities. After my time with the Refugee Fund, I dipped and dabbled into different entrepreneurial activities. It actually took me a long time to accept the fact that I was an entrepreneur. I'll never forget the one turning point, I guess you might say, in my life. I don't really want to say it's a turning point, but when someone really dropped some major seeds in my heart and my head. This woman wanted to give me a test. And she said, I'm really impressed with you. So she gave me this test. And then later gave me the results of the test. And the reason why she wanted to give me the test, because she was going to start like an escort service. Now, nothing illicit about it. What it was is that at that time in Hartford, Connecticut, really in the New Jersey, Connecticut, New York area, there is a shortage of male companionship for black women. If black women are looking for black male companionship, there's a severe shortage. And so what she wanted to do is to be able to have a situation where black women could contact an escort service, knowing that they're contacting a legitimate one, not to contact and say, hey, bring this guy over to my motel and we'll do some hanky-panky for so many dollars. But a man, just a good, suitable date, for the evening. So she wanted me to be part of that company for her. And she really got to talking to me, and she said, I want to give you a test. Gave me a test. So the results came back, and she said, look, read this. She told me to read the test results. And I read it, and I said, okay, I don't get it. And she said, well, you're an entrepreneur. And I said, well, what's that? Now, I did know what it was, but I just wanted her to give me her definition. And she gave me her definition. I said, no, that's not me. I'm a guy who likes a steady paycheck. Well, I was denying reality. I always sort of thought maybe I'm lazy because when I would do a job, I wouldn't last long. Either wouldn't last long or I'd absolutely hated it. And so I got to think, well, maybe I'm lazy. No, I wasn't lazy. I was an entrepreneur. So I noticed, like with the Refugee Fund, I was working for myself. This is a nonprofit my ex-wife and I started. And I wouldn't rest. I wouldn't rest. From the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, I was involved in developing the Refugee Fund. I was doing something. So, and that's the way I was with any entrepreneurial activity I took on. I just became passionate about it. And so that experience with that test and talking to that woman, that was the first time it really hit me to say, man, maybe you are an entrepreneur. And so it just took me many, many years to accept that. And it also took me many, many years to really start to understand what that means, the good and bad, the ups and downs about it. And that definitely has come to focus for me dating back to 2010 when I've been an entrepreneur as a chess coach, organizing tournaments, teaching kids, coaching chess teams, etc. since 2010. And so that brings us back to today. I said to myself, at least once a week, I'm going to start sharing with folks my experiences as an entrepreneur, my thoughts, my opinions as an entrepreneur, and hopefully it will help somebody out there who's thinking about self-employment, starting their own business, being an entrepreneur. So this is my second show doing that, and the one thing I want to do in the next couple of minutes is say to you folks, cash flow. Cash flow, cash flow. You got to have ways to keep that cash flowing. One thing I've noticed is that if I eventually created a steady cash flow, I was okay. I could cover expenses. I could cover debts. Only thing I had to do is budget and stick to that budget. But I had to have that cash flow. So I would do, I wouldn't turn jobs down. I mean, I just wouldn't turn jobs down. I didn't care if it meant, well, somehow or another, I got to figure out how I'm going to be at the same two different places on the same day, same time. I would work it out. Of course, I was not turning down jobs. I was not turning down contracts. Sometimes it meant going off and taking a part-time gig, working at some gas station or something like that. If that's what it took, daggone it, that's what it took, and I was going to do it, and I did it. Many times I do it to create that cash flow. Sometimes it may mean doing something else on the side. Yeah, I would teach chess, and organize tournaments, etc. But on the side, I may do some tutoring. Whatever it took, you got to keep that cash flowing. If you got that cash flowing, hey, you can usually, it's like treading water. You can just keep your head above water until something comes along and you can be plucked out of the water and thrown on a ship or yacht or something. You got to keep that cash flowing. I used to have a dear friend of mine, and she would even oftentimes would say to me, she'd made good money. She made real good money. And I would say to her, there aren't too many men who will be able to make as much money as you do. And her attitude is this. Look, she said, I don't care how much he's making. Just as long as I know when he's going to get his money, what day, and some idea as to how much he's going to get. Because if I have an idea on that, if it's pretty steady and all, then we can budget and we can get by. You just handle it. And so that's what I say to all entrepreneurs. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow, and then budget that money. Budget that money and then manage it right. And you can make it through. You can make it through. I tell you, the best times when I was an entrepreneur, there were some days when I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know when my next check would be coming in. I mean, I just flat out would not know. So if I got behind them on rent or utilities, I wouldn't know what to do because I didn't know when I'd get another check. But if I was in a situation where I had cash consistently coming in, no problem, I'd budget and I could handle things much better. So I just want to conclude this podcast with not 3 words, but 6 words. Cash flow, cash flow, cash flow. This is Invest Now America.